Have you ever wondered what happens when gods get angry? Not just a little annoyed, but truly, earth-shakingly furious. Today, we're diving into one of the most dramatic stories in Japanese mythology, a tale of sibling rivalry that plunged the entire world into darkness. This is the story of Amaterasu, the sun goddess, and her chaotic brother, Susanoo, the storm god. Our story begins in the heavens, the celestial plane known as Takamagara. This divine realm was ruled by Amaterasu Omakami, a goddess whose radiance brought light and warmth to the world. She was responsible for the rice paddies, the silk looms, and the general prosperity of gods and mortals alike. Her life was orderly, bright, and full of purpose. But every bright day has a storm brewing on the horizon, and in this case, the storm had a name, Susanoo no Makoto. Susanoo was the complete opposite of his sister. While Amaterasu was the embodiment of order and light, Susanoo was the god of seas and storms, wild, unpredictable, and fiercely emotional. He had just been banished from the heavens by their father, Izanagi, for his constant wailing and destruction after their mother Izanami's death. But before departing for the underworld, Susanoo declared he had to say goodbye to his sister. Amaterasu was suspicious. Knowing her brother's destructive nature, she didn't believe for a second that this was just a friendly farewell visit. She prepared for battle, arming herself with a bow and arrows, and met him with the fury of a warrior goddess. "Why have you come here?" she demanded, her voice echoing across the celestial plains. Susanoo, trying to appear innocent, insisted he had no ill intentions. He just wanted to say goodbye before his exile. To prove his sincerity, he proposed a divine contest, a ritual called yukai. They would each take an item belonging to the other, and, by chewing it and spitting it out, create new gods. The nature of the gods born from this ritual would reveal the purity of their intentions. If the gods born from his actions were male, he claimed, it would prove his heart was pure. Amaterasu agreed. She took Susanoo's 10-span sword, broke it into 3 pieces, chewed them, and spat out 3 beautiful goddesses. Then it was Susanoo's turn. He took Amaterasu's string of 500 Magatama beads, crushed them in his mouth, and from his breath, 5 powerful male gods were born. Seeing the male deities, Susanoo roared in triumph. "I have won. My intentions are pure," he declared. Amaterasu pointed out that the male gods were born from her sacred beads, so, technically, they were hers, and thus she was the true winner. But Susanoo wasn't listening. In his mind, his victory gave him a free pass to do whatever he wanted, and that's when the real trouble began. Intoxicated by his supposed win, Susanoo went on a rampage across the heavens. His idea of a victory lap was pure chaos. First, he destroyed the intricate irrigation channels that watered Amaterasu's sacred rice paddies, ruining the crops that sustained the heavens. Amaterasu, trying to be a patient older sister, initially excused his behavior. "Oh, he's just being boisterous," she told the other gods. "He probably thought he was just leveling the ground." But Susanoo's actions escalated. His next target was Amaterasu's sacred weaving hall, where divine maidens were weaving the garments of the gods. In a horrific act, Susanoo tore a hole in the roof and threw down the flayed carcass of a heavenly piebald horse, a sacred animal. The shock and terror were so great that one of the weaving maidens, in her panic, struck herself with her shuttle and died. This was the final straw. The sacred work was defiled. A life was lost. The last bit of Amaterasu's patience shattered. Her grief and rage were immeasurable. The light of the sun goddess, the very source of life and warmth for the universe, was extinguished by her sorrow. She fled. Amaterasu found a cave in the heavens, the Amano Uta, or the Heavenly Rock Cave. She rolled a giant boulder across the entrance, sealing herself inside. And with her, she took all the light in the universe. The heavens and the earth were plunged into an eternal night. The world grew cold, crops withered, evil spirits emerged from the shadows, and chaos reigned. The constant darkness brought forth endless disasters, and the joyous laughter of the gods was replaced with cries of despair. The 8 million gods of the celestial plane were in a full-blown panic. They gathered by the bank of the heavenly river, trying to figure out how to coax their sun goddess out of her self-imposed exile. They tried everything. They offered prayers, they made offerings, but the boulder remained unmoved. The darkness persisted. The world was dying. Finally, the god of wisdom, Omoakane, devised a brilliant plan. It wasn't a plan of force, but one of cunning and joy. The gods would throw the biggest, wildest party the heavens had ever seen, right outside her cave. They gathered roosters, whose crows signaled the dawn, hoping the sound would trick Amaterasu into thinking morning had come without her. They forged a new, magnificent mirror, the Yacht no Kagami, and a string of beautiful jewels, the Yasakani no Magatama. Then the main event began. The goddess of the dawn and merriment, Aim no Zoom, took center stage. She overturned a large wooden tub, jumped on top of it, and began to dance. But this was no ordinary dance. It was wild, hilarious, and more than a little scandalous. She stomped on the tub, creating a thunderous rhythm, and as her dance grew more frantic, she began to disrobe. The sight was so absurd and joyful that all 8 million gods erupted in uproarious laughter. The sound was deafening, a wave of pure, unadulterated joy that shook the very foundations of heaven. Inside the cave, Amaterasu heard the commotion. She was confused. The world is supposed to be in darkness and sorrow without me, she thought. Why are they all laughing? Has another, greater goddess appeared? Her curiosity got the better of her. She pushed the boulder aside, just a tiny crack, to peek outside. Why are you all celebrating when the world is dark? She asked. Aim no Nuzum cheekily replied. We are celebrating because we have found a goddess more radiant and noble than you. As she spoke, another god held up the gleaming mirror they had forged. Amaterasu peered out and saw her own brilliant reflection. For a moment, she was mesmerized, thinking it was indeed a new goddess. As she leaned further out for a better look, the incredibly strong god, Aim no Tajikaro, who had been hiding by the side of the cave, grabbed her arm and pulled her out completely. Another god quickly sealed the cave entrance with a sacred straw rope, a Shimenawa, to prevent her from ever hiding away again. And just like that, light returned to the universe. The world warmed up, the evil spirits retreated, and order was restored. The 8 million gods cheered, their party turning into a true celebration of the return of the light. But what about Susanoo, the cause of all this chaos? The gods didn't let him off the hook. For his crimes, he was severely punished. They shaved his beard, pulled out his fingernails and toenails, and formally banished him from the heavens to the mortal realm of Izuma. His heavenly rampage was over. This myth is more than just a family drama between gods. It's a powerful story about the delicate balance between order and chaos, light and darkness. It shows us how even the brightest light can be dimmed by grief and anger, but also how community, joy, and a little bit of cleverness can bring it back. The return of Amaterasu symbolizes the cyclical nature of life, the promise that dawn will always follow the darkest night. The story of Amaterasu's retreat into the cave is one of the foundational myths of the Shinto religion and Japanese culture, explaining the changing of seasons and the importance of social harmony. The sacred items used to lure her out, the mirror, the jewel, and the sword from the initial contestbu, came the 3 imperial regalia of Japan, symbols of the emperor's divine legitimacy. So, the next time you see a sunrise, think of Amaterasu emerging from her cave to once again grace the world with her light. And maybe spare a thought for her chaotic brother Susanoo, whose temper tantrum inadvertently taught the gods and Usa valuable lesson about the consequences of our actions and the incredible power of laughter and light. Thanks for joining me on this mythological journey today. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next dive into the fascinating world of myths and legends. See you next time.